we're in this thing right now. Like, there's no space for a child. So, long story short, we had our baby. CIA brought us back to have the baby, and when we started having conversations about, hey, what do we do next? Because we're not the type of people to want to just sit around and be domestic. What do we do next? But keep in mind, we have a child now. So here's some of our suggestions. We could do this and we can do that. Let us get our child to a place where we can put him into an international school, or we can get him into some sort of program where we can both operate together again during the day. But CIA just had no patience for that conversation. There was no, family is not their priority. So the fact that we were a tandem couple, 2 officers, 2 operators trying to have a baby, was irrelevant to them. So when they didn't play with us, when they did nothing to help us prioritize parenthood as part of our overall experience, that's when we knew that they never would. And what good is it to commit yourself to a career if the career is always going to challenge the thing that you value most? And that was the calculation that we made to leave CIA. Not everybody makes that calculation. And a big part of why I am so vocal about my time at CIA is because I am immensely appreciative of the men and women who, to this day, have failed marriages and poor relationships with their children because they chose national security. They chose protecting America over their own family. And they've done it even though it's made them abuse alcohol and abuse substances, and they've got permanent diseases and issues from living and working abroad. It's just it's insane, the sacrifice that officers make to keep America free. And I'm just not one of those people. I chose family.
You said that your wife misses it. Do you miss it?
We both miss it. We miss it for different reasons. We miss it for similar reasons, I guess, but we miss it in different ways. The people at CIA are just amazing. They're people they're everyday people, like the guy in the gal next door, but so smart and so dedicated and so courageous about what they do and how they do it. I mean, the sacrifices they make are massive. More massive than the sacrifices I made, so I was always inspired and impressed by the people around me. So both my wife and I absolutely miss the people. My wife misses the work, because you know everything. When you're inside, it's all, I mean, we had top secret, we had TS/SCI clearances at the time. I had a Cat 6, Cat 12, which makes me nuclear cleared. My wife had other privy clearances that allowed her to look into, areas that were specialized. But there wasn't a headline that went out that we couldn't fact check with a click of a few buttons. And she misses that because she loved that kind of.
Now you're just one of us living in the cloud of mystery.
Exactly.
Not really knowing anything about what's going on.
Exactly. But for me, I've always been the person that likes operating. And you know what you still get to do when you leave CIA? You still get to operate. Operating is just working with people. It's understanding how people think, predicting their actions, driving their direction of their thoughts, persuading them, winning negotiations. You still get to do that. You do that every day.
And you can apply that in all kinds of domains. Well, let me ask you on that. You were a covert CIA intelligence officer for several years. Maybe can you tell me the story of how it all began? Were you recruited, and what did the job entail, to the degree you can speak about it?
Feel free to direct me if I'm getting too boring, or if the
every aspect of this is super exciting.
So I was leaving the United States Air Force in 2007. I was a lieutenant, getting ready to pin on captain. My 5 years was up, and I was a very bad fit for the U.S. Air Force. I was an Air Force Academy graduate, not by choice, but by lack of opportunity, lack of options otherwise. So I forced myself through the academy, barely graduated with a 2.4 GPA, and then went on. The Air Force taught me how to fly, and then the Air Force taught me about nuclear weapons, and I ended up as a nuclear missile commander in Montana. And I chose to leave the Air Force because I didn't like shaving my face. I didn't like having short hair, and I most definitely didn't like shining my shoes. And I did not want to be one of the people in charge of nuclear weapons. So when I found myself as a person in charge of 200 nuclear weapons, I knew that I was going down the wrong road.
I have questions about this, and more importantly, I have questions about your hair. So you had short hair at the time,
I had, yeah, you have to. Military regulations, you can't have hair longer than 1 inch.
okay? And this, the beautiful hair you have now,
Yes.
that came to be in the CIA or after?
So I discovered I had messy hair in CIA because I used to go Muj. We called it Muj. I used to go Mujahideen style, big burly beard and crazy wacky hair.
Yeah.
Because an ambiguously brown guy with a big beard and long hair can go anywhere in the world without anyone even noticing him. They either think that he's a janitor or they think that he's like some forgotten part of history, but nobody ever thinks that that guy is a spy. So it was the perfect, for me, it was one of my favorite disguises. It's what's known as a level 2 disguise. One of my favorite disguises to don was just dilapidated brown guy.
Can you actually, we'll just take a million tangent. What's the level 2 disguise? What are the different levels of disguise? What are the disguises?
Yeah, there's 3 levels of disguise by and large. Level 1 is what we also call light disguise. So that's essentially you put on sunglasses and a ball cap and that's a disguise. You look different than you normally look. So it's just different enough that someone who's never seen you before, someone who literally has to see you just from a picture on the internet, they may not recognize you. That's why you see celebrities walk around with ball caps and oversized jackets and baseball hats, because they just need to not look like they look in the tabloid or not look like they look in TV. That's level 1. Let me jump from level 1 to level 3. Level 3 is all of your prosthetics, all the stuff you see in Mission Impossible, your fake ears, your fake faces, your fat suits, your stilts inside your feet, all that's level 3. Whenever they make any kind of prosthetic disguise, that's a level 3 disguise, because prosthetics are very damning if you are caught with a prosthetic. If you're caught wearing a baseball hat and sunglasses, nobody's going to say you're a spy. But when you're caught with a custom-made, nose prosthetic that changes the way your face looks, or when someone pops out a fake jaw and they see that your top teeth don't look like they did in this prosthetic, then all of a sudden you've got some very difficult questions to ask or to answer. So level 3 is extremely dangerous. Level 1 is not dangerous. Level 2 is long-term disguise. Level 2 is all the things that you can do to permanently change the way you look for a long period of time, so that whether you're aggressed in the street or whether someone breaks into your hotel room or whatever, it's real. So maybe maybe you get a tattoo. Maybe you cut your hair short. Maybe you grow your hair long. Maybe you go bald. Maybe you start wearing glasses. Well, glasses are technically a prosthetic, but if you have teeth pulled, if you gain 20 pounds, really gain 20 pounds or lose 15 pounds, whatever you might do, all of that's considered level 2. It's designed for a long-term mission so that people believe you are who you say you are in that disguise.
A lot of that is physical characteristics.
Right.
What about what actors do, which is the
Method acting.
Yeah, the method acting, sort of developing a backstory in your own mind, and then you start, pretending that you host a podcast and teach at a university, and then you do research and so on, just so that people can believe
Yeah.
that you're not actually an agent. What is that part of the disguise levels or not?
So yes, disguise has to do with physical character traits. That's what a disguise is. What you're talking about is known as a cover legend. When you go undercover, what you claim to be, who you claim to be, that's called your legend, your cover legend. Every disguise would theoretically have its own cover legend. Even if it's just to describe why you're wearing what you're wearing, it's all a cover. So the method acting, this is a fantastic point that I don't get to make very often, so I'm glad you asked. The difference between CIA officers in the field and method actors is that method actors try to become the character. They try to shed all vestiges of who they really are and become the character. And that's part of what makes them so amazing. But it's also part of what makes them mentally unstable over long periods of time. It's part of what feeds their depression, their anxiety, their personal issues, because they lose sight of who they really are. Field officers don't get that luxury. We have to always remember we are a covert CIA intelligence officer collecting secrets in the field. We have to remember that. So we're taught a very specific skill to compartmentalize our true self separately, but make that true self the true identity. So then we can still live and act and effectively carry out our cover legend without ever losing sight, without ever losing that compass true north of who we actually are. And then we can compartmentalize and secure all the information that we need, retain it, remember it, but then return to our true self when we get back to a position of safety.
Is it possible to do that? So I just have kind of anecdotal evidence for myself. I really try to be the exact same person in all conditions, which makes it very easy. Like if you're not lying, it makes it very easy to, first of all, to exist, but also to communicate a kind of authenticity and a genuineness, which I think is really important. Like trust and integrity around trust is extremely important to me. It's the thing that opens doors and maintains relationships. And I tend to think, like, when I was in Ukraine, so many doors just opened to the very sort of high security areas, and everywhere else too. Like I've just interacted with some incredible people without any kind of concerns. You know, who's this guy? Is he gonna spread it? You know, all that kind of stuff. And I tend to believe that you're able to communicate a trustworthiness somehow if you just are who you are. And I suppose method actors are trying to achieve that by becoming something, and they can. I just feel like there is very subtle cues that are extremely difficult to fake. Like you really have to become that person, be that person. But you're saying, as a CIA agent, you have to remember that you are there to collect information. Do you think that gives you away?
So one of the flaws in your argument is that you keep referring to how you feel. I feel this, I feel that, I feel like this, I feel like that. That feeling is a predictable character trait of all human beings. It's a pink matter, we call it pink matter. It's a cognitive trait. You are not alone in trusting your feelings. All people trust their feelings. But because what CIA teaches us is how to systematically create artificial relationships where we're the one in control of the source that is giving us intelligence. And the core element to being able to control a relationship is understanding the pink matter truth of feelings. What all people feel becomes their point of view on what reality is. So when you understand and you learn how to manipulate what people feel, then you can essentially direct them to feel any way you want them to feel. So if you want them to feel like they can trust you, you can make them feel that way. If you want them to feel like you're a good guy or a bad guy, if you want them to feel like they should give you secrets even though their government tells them not to, you can do that. There are men who make women feel like they love them and just so the woman will sleep with them. There are women who make men feel like they love them just so the men will give them their money. Manipulation is a core behavioral trait of all the human species because we all understand to some level how powerful feelings are, but feelings are not the same thing as logical, rational thought. They're two different sides of the brain. What CIA teaches us how to do is systematically tap into the right side, emotional side of the brain, so that we can quickly get past all of the stuff you were just saying, all of the, well, don't you have to be convincing, and don't you have to really know your story, and don't you have to be able to defend it, don't you have to have authenticity, and don't you have to have genuine feelings? Yes, all of those things are true if you're having a genuine relationship. But in an artificial relationship, there's ways to bypass all of that and get right to the heart of making someone feel comfortable and safe.
I guess the question I'm asking, and the thing I was implying, is that creating an artificial relationship is an extremely difficult skill to accomplish the level, like how good I am at being me and creating a feeling in another person that I create. For you to do that artificially, my sense is you gotta be really damn good at that kind of thing. I would venture to say, I don't know how to measure how difficult the thing is, but especially when you're communicating with people whose job depends on forming trusting relationships, they're gonna smell bullshit. And to get past that bullshit detector is tough. It's a tough skill.
Well, it's interesting. So I would say that,
or maybe I'm wrong actually on that.
I would say that once you understand the system, it's not that hard. It makes a lot of sense. But I would also say that to your exact point, you are right that people smell bullshit. People smell bullshit. But here's the thing. If you come in smelling like goat shit, you still smell like shit, but you don't smell like bullshit. So they don't count you out right away. And if you come in smelling like rotten tomatoes, or if you come in smelling like lavender, or if you come in smelling like vanilla, or if you come in without any smell at all that matters is that you don't smell like bullshit. Here's the thing that's one of the secret sauces of CIA. When you look and act like a spy, people think you're a spy. If you look and act in any other way, you know what they never ever think you are? A spy. They might think you're an idiot. They might think you're trailer trash. They might think that you're a migrant worker, but they never think you're a spy. And that lesson in everyday life is immensely powerful. If you're trying to take your boss's job, as long as you don't ever look like the employee who's trying to take the boss's job, the boss is focused on all the employees who are trying to take his job. Everybody's prioritizing whether they know it or not. The goal is to just not be the one that they're targeting. Target them without them knowing you're targeting them.
So people just, when they meet you, they put you in a bin. And if you want to avoid being put in a particular bin, just don't act like the person that would be. Just show some kind of characteristics that bin you in some other way.
Exactly right. You have to be in a bin. Just choose the bin.
All right. So, how, you knowing these methods, when you talk to people, especially in civilian life, how do you know who's lying to you and not?
That gets to be more into the trained skill side of things. There's body cues, there's micro expressions. I'm not a big fan of, I don't believe that micro expressions alone do anything. I also don't believe that micro expressions without an effective baseline do anything. So don't for a second think that all the people out there pitching that you can tell if someone's lying to you just by looking at their face, it's all baloney. In my world, that's baloney.
Like the way you move your eyes or something like that.
Without knowing a baseline, without knowing
For that individual.
then you actually don't know. And an individual's baseline is based on education, culture, life experience, you name it, right? So it's huge. But when you combine facial expressions with body movements, body language, nonverbal cues, and you add on top of that effective elicitation techniques that you are in control of, now you have a more robust platform to tell if someone's lying to you.
So there's like a set of like interrogation trajectories you can go down that can help you figure out a person.
Technically, they're interview
Like this podcast.
concepts. Correct. Because an interrogation is something very different than an interview. And in the world of professionals, an interrogation is very different.
What's the difference? The nature of how relaxed the thing is, or what?
So in an interrogation, there's a clear pattern of dominance. There's no equality. Also, there's no escape. You are there until the interrogator is done with you, right? Anybody who's ever been reprimanded by mom and dad knows what an interrogation feels like. Anybody who's ever been called into the principal's office or the boss's office, that's what interrogation feels like. You don't leave until the boss says you can leave. And you're there to answer questions the boss asks questions. An interview is an equal exchange of ideas. You are in control of this interview, for sure. But if we were having coffee, I could take control if I wanted to take control. If I wanted to ask you personal questions, I would. If I wanted to talk to you about your background, I could.
Why am I in control of this interview exactly?
Because the person in control is the person asking questions.
I'm
Always.
sitting here, as you've spoken about, my power here is I'm the quiet one listening.
You're exactly right. Guess where this conversation goes?
Yeah.
Anywhere you choose to take it, because you're the one asking questions. Every time I answer a question, I'm creating a pattern of obedience to you, which subliminally, subconsciously makes me that much more apt to answer your questions.
Of course, you can always turn that and start asking me questions. It should, you know. But you're saying that there's through conversation, you can call it interviewing. You can start to see cracks in the story of the person and the degree to which they exaggerate or lie or